Identifying as a mom, daughter, conservative, friend, parental rights activist, Republican Party delegate, lover of freedom, conspiracy theorist, mama bear, and force to be reckoned with, this is Raising Liberty with Lindsey Beckham. Happy Friday afternoon. Look, I'm telling you, I'm feeling the back to school pains today. And getting here this afternoon was quite hectic in all the traffic, but I'm super excited to be here and to be back with you guys. And I have my good friend with me today, Cade Yates, and he is the state deputy director, right, with Americans for Prosperity. And so I first met Cade when I went to the AFP office to take a class, basically a grassroots class teaching people in the community kind of how to talk to their legislators and kind of the whole process on how a bill becomes a law. And, I at that point just went in guns blazing, ready to take on the world and just annihilate anyone who stood in my way. And so I think I've calmed down a little bit since then. Kate, I hope you can attest to that.
Oh, yeah.
But tell us a little bit about how you got involved with AFP first, and then I know we want to talk about some of the specifics that you're working on.
Yeah, so I got involved with AFP in 2019. I had moved back home, was trying to find a, uh, a very I don't know what I was trying to find, but I had a good friend of mine say, "Hey, you're interested in politics. You're interested in making a change. You should look at this organization, Americans for Prosperity." I was like, "All right, well, I'll take a look." And I interviewed and went through, and I thought I was like, I'm underqualified. I've sold barbecue and I've sold guns, the most American things possible. And they felt like I cared about Mississippi deeply. I went to school to actually be a pastor, and I found that I knew that my work would be outside the walls of the church more, and I knew that community work needed to be done, and I knew that there was a lot of problems, but I didn't have a lot of solutions. And so when I started to dive deep into AFP, or Americans for Prosperity, I was like, man, these guys they actually have policy solutions. They're talking about things that nobody else is talking about.
Mhm.
Um, and I found myself in a whirlwind of getting to know our policies and kind of getting to know how Mississippi politics works. And I mean, before then, I was I voted and I went and did my part and sign waved maybe a little bit, but nothing to the level I'm doing now. And so I started as a grassroots guy in 2019, and then a couple years ago became deputy state director, and it's been an amazing journey ever since.
Yeah, so when I first met you, my big issue and what I wanted to change at the Capitol kind of surrounded, or it was a healthcare issue
Yeah,
and the vaccine issue
yeah,
and religious exemptions, because I had a personal experience where I was affected by having a child who was vaccine injured, and so that was very personal for
yeah.
me. And I realized real quickly that when you start wanting to change things in the healthcare system, you have a long road ahead of you. It's
Yes.
very, very difficult to do. So you've been working in that arena a little bit. So tell us about certificate of need laws and the repealing of those laws.
Yeah, so I'd back up a little bit and just say
Yeah.
I when we first met,
Uh-huh.
healthcare issues were such a big thing,
Mhm.
and but like a lot of folks, when I joined AFP, I mean, my family story is I grew up with a mom who had multiple sclerosis, and we had, every time we go to the mailbox, we didn't know how much it was going to cost.
Mhm.
We were so scared of even going to the hospital or trying to work in the healthcare field. We knew that we appreciated doctors and we appreciated the talented hands that God had provided in the healthcare industry, but we didn't have a lot of hope that there was any change in the cost and the way healthcare was provided. And so when we met, I know it was a big thing to be able to connect over the conversation around making the healthcare system better, whether that's
Mhm.
your freedom to choose what goes in your body, and or whether that's the freedom to choose what providers you have in your area, or what doctors you're going to. And so when I started working on the healthcare side, I mean, I had no idea how deep this was going to go. And so when I started looking around at all the issues going on, I called a bunch of these experts in healthcare across the United States, and I said, "Hey, listen, what are the areas of healthcare in Mississippi that need to be changed right now? That are the most important areas?" And the first issue that came up was certificate of need laws. And certificate of need laws, I had no idea that these even existed because
Mhm.
for me, I thought as long as you were licensed, as long as you were, you know, practicing within your authority of your training, and you had the money to set up a clinic, I thought that's all you needed to do to
Mhm.
open a medical facility. I mean, I really was ignorant to the fact that there is a huge government um, presence in deciding what facilities came into Mississippi,
Mhm.
and a lot of states. I mean, certificate of need laws came around um, in the 60s and 70s when some states started trying to control the healthcare marketplace. Specifically, I think New York was one of the first ones in trying to control healthcare cost and trying to eliminate services being doubled up and services that are not really needed being provided in a community. And the problem was is this idea caught on, and then the feds took it and ran with it and established it on the national level under the Ford administration.
Mhm.
And within 10 years, it was a disaster. I mean,
Yeah.
healthcare costs skyrocketed, the amount of hospitals plummeted, and the free market was not allowed to work as it should.
Mhm.
And thank goodness for President Reagan and the leadership at that time that eliminated this on the federal level. Now, unfortunately, a lot of states kept these around, kept these certificate of need laws around because there was this idea that um, if you do not keep these laws on, your hospitals are going to close and your healthcare is going to be way over produced in certain areas, and the costs are going to plummet, and essentially businesses are going to shut down. The problem is what we found, and the research that's been done since these laws were in place in a lot of states, we found that this is not the case, that hospitals don't shut down. Generally, if there is a shutdown, they're replaced by a better hospital because competition works.
Right.
And in even in rural communities, a lot of people think, well, I don't. Nobody wants to come to rural communities. No, if there's enough people in an area, there are opportunities for MRI machines. And also I forgot to mention this about CON laws or certificate of need laws, is it doesn't just cover hospitals. It covers
Mhm.
machinery. It covers MRI, PET scans. It
Yeah,
covers
we've had that conversation
yeah,
before about like a clinic coming
yeah,
in that just sets up to do MRIs and what they have to go through, the hoops they have to
yeah,
jump through in order to do that, and the money that they have to put up
yeah,
front that they won't get back if for some reason this doesn't work out or if there's a
exactly.
lawsuit on the other end of it. So can you explain kind of a little bit about
The process.
the process and what they
Yeah.
have to go through?
Yeah, so if you're a mental health facility or a someone that wants to have an MRI machine or open up a new hospital in an area, you have essentially the opportunity is if you want to come into Mississippi and you want to open up that facility, you have to first fill out the application, do an entire process, which is not like it's not just going to like a government office and just filling out something. You need a legal team to make sure that you're not going to mess up on that end. So that's your first cost is your legal team is going to deeply and fully, figure out is there a need? Because this whole process is there a need in your community for this service? Is there a need for this service to come in and compete with with the other businesses around it? And so once you fill out that, you go before the board and they evaluate your application. They take comments from your competitors, which is a big problem. They listen to your competitors on why you shouldn't be there, why there's enough services already,
Mhm.
even though the wait times might be long. And then in Mississippi, and there are several states that this is the case. You actually once you get approved, your competitors can actually sue you and say,
Mhm.
"Hey, listen, there was a mistake on their side, on the board side, and I don't believe it was the right decision, and we're going to lock them up in litigation for um, a very long time."
Mhm.
And generally, what we see is generally the process, the application process, despite there being some evidence that it deters people from initially applying in the first place because they can go to a lot of states that don't have these laws.
Right.
Um, Generally, they know that if they make it to the end, they're going to go into a litigation process that
Mhm.
most people don't make it out of.
Yeah, and then they've put all this money
Yeah,
into this up front.
lawyers are not cheap.
Not at all, not at all. And what I love so much about AFP and the work that you guys do, and this is kind of where we connect on the school choice side,
Mhm.
because I'm a huge advocate for school choice and parents having the decision on where they send their children. And we had a bill last session, the Tesla bill. It was ended up being labeled the Tesla bill,
Yep.
and unfortunately, that bill passed. And
Yeah.
I think we were at dinner one night hoping that Tate would veto that bill, because what we have seen is that the free market works. It
Yeah.
just works. And so if you give people more options, then businesses are going to become better and more competitive,
Yes.
and it just works. So
Exactly.
I hate to see Mississippi falling behind, not only when it comes to school choice, not only when it comes to certificate of need laws, but the income tax as well. And
Yeah.
so we're looking at people who are deciding to move to other states where there is no income tax, where there is a free market, where there are no certificate of need laws, where they do have school choice. And so instead of having those people come to Mississippi, which is a great state to live and a
Yeah.
great place to raise a family, they're going elsewhere because government restrictions are holding them back from being able to come here. So, Cade, what do we do to fix it? How do we change it?
Yeah, well, and the crazy part is I think you highlighted the protectionist mindset that a lot of the the deciders in the state have, and that is if we do not protect the existing businesses, those businesses will disappear and life will be much worse. When in reality, when we allow the market to work, when we allow these right principles, the right side of free market principles, capitalism work,
Mhm.
you're the place every place that capitalism and the markets have been allowed to work has gotten better because of free market principles. The human stick of the what is it it's called the hockey stick of human progress,
Mhm.
and that's where the vast majority of people in the modern world went from destitute poverty to absolute, I
The
mean, we're
American
the
dream. It's the
American
American
dream.
dream.
And so that's what we do. And so and I will say the crazy part about CON laws or certificate of need laws in Mississippi is there are, I think there's 11 states without CON laws, and there's over 100 million Americans in those states who do not fall under CON laws. So there's a third of Americans who do not have to deal with these
And it's
laws,
working.
and it's working. And I mean, that's Florida, Texas, South Carolina recently repealed down to only one area covered. South Dakota, Wyoming. There's rural states, urban states. There's all kinds of states in between. States with high Medicaid numbers and low Medicaid numbers
Mhm.
that don't have CON laws. And this year we actually saw that over 50, I think it was over 55 bills were pushed in states with con laws to reduce the barriers that are there, because they know that, I mean, if we don't get on the ball, we're going to be behind,
Mhm.
because all these hospitals can go right on the border and get right into states that don't have con laws. I mean,
Right.
Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee. Well, Tennessee, they're working on some of their rural healthcare options. But Alabama, I know that they're going to be working on it as well. And so Mississippi is going to at some point have to change our laws. And I will point out that a lot of our legislators, I've never actually had a legislator tell me that they want to keep these laws in place.
Mhm.
There's just differing levels of what we want to change. And so you're back to your question on what do we do now?
Mhm.
First, get educated on the issue. Like I said, up until 2019, I thought there was no hope. We conducted a study nationwide that I think it was over 70% of Americans believed that the healthcare system was unfixable. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a huge vast majority of Americans who think that there's no options in healthcare. There's no way to give people freedom. And they think that going to single payer is going to fix it. And what we see with single payer is there's forced decisions on your health.
Mhm.
There's long wait times, and the government is picking and choosing who dies
Right.
because of the viability of life. And so that's what we're defending here is, yeah, sometimes the free market is tough, and it's a hard conversation because I can't control what the future looks like. but in countries and in states that they've restricted healthcare to the highest extent, you're seeing some major consequences. And so that's the first thing is I've go into rooms all the time with Republican women and with you know, local clubs and individuals who are just interested in ideas and learning about healthcare. And most people don't know about certificate of need laws. So
Right.
once you find out about it, go and talk to your neighbors. And then the next thing is meet with your legislator and tell them that, I've looked at this issue. I think there's over 400 studies on certificate of need, and a vast majority of them, over 70% of them, uh, state that CON laws do not actually positively affect healthcare, their negative impact,
Yeah.
or that there are some major, or that there's no effect at all. Like it doesn't actually help hospitals or hurt hospitals. So once you're able to have that meeting with your legislator and have a conversation, and this is something we worked on when we first met, was
Uh-huh.
I understand
The
the
passion.
the passion. I mean, and there are days that I sit down with legislators and I just want to beat my head against the wall because I don't feel like they're hearing me.
Mhm.
But the thing is they represent a lot of good people. They represent a lot of hardworking Mississippians that have to go to the hospital, that have to go to the doctor, that have to experience the same things that you and I experience with our healthcare system, with you and your kids, and with me and my wife.
Right.
We've had some really bad experiences with
Yeah.
some of the hospital systems, and so if you can share those experiences with your neighbor and say, hey, listen, let's go meet with our legislator and speak to him as a human being,
Mhm.
and say, hey, listen, I know your job's tough. I know that there are days that you cannot please everyone,
Yeah.
but the work that is being done on certificate of need laws, the states that have repealed this are very red states. Um, we need to make sure that Mississippi's ahead of the curve and joining the 11 states that completely repeal con. So, and it might not be in one fell swoop. It might be over
Mhm.
10 years that we slowly repeal con. But at the end of the day, I mean, last year was the first time, and this is what I like to tell people,
Mhm.
give people hope. Last year was the first time ever that we ever got the bill, a con bill or certificate of need bill, out of committee
Yeah.
since
And went
ever.
till, like, to the very end.
Yeah, it made it all the way to the very end, and this was easy. I mean, this was such an easy, good bill, and I'm not saying easy in the fact that I don't appreciate the work of the legislators, because the legislators
Right,
worked
a huge
very
shout
hard.
out to Lee Yancey,
Yes,
who
very
has
much
been
so.
such an advocate and such a
Yes.
warrior on this issue.
Yes, Representative Lee Yancey was fantastic on the bill, and Representative Sam Creekmore, who was the chairman in the House, who worked so diligently on it, and Vice Chairman Felsher. I'm very appreciative of their work, and even in the Senate, I appreciated that. Even Bryan, I don't know that me and Senator Bryan always agree, but I do appreciate the fact that they did bring the
They
conversation
did.
all the way to the end, and hopefully next year we will see the first change ever in certificate of need laws in the state of Mississippi. And this bill was House Bill 848, which covered mental health, substance abuse, and birthing
So it
centers.
wasn't a full
It was not a
repeal.
full repeal. And it was, but for us, I mean, my messaging to legislators and what I tell everyone is when it comes to mental health, we have to get the amount of mental health beds up. We have to make sure that there's no barriers that stand in the way of anyone coming in. And recently there was a study, or a study, a an article that came out that there was a local hospital that had shut down their mental health beds, and another company was trying to come in and open those up. They were sued by a different hospital to make sure those beds didn't come back open, because of, you know, various reasons. And I'm not going to say how the case should turn out. That's
Mhm.
not my place, but I will say it's a huge problem
Yeah.
that comes into play, where these laws can allow for companies to sue companies that want to come to Mississippi, open up mental health beds, and serve those who need it most.
Right, and, I mean, obviously, from the outside looking in, I feel like that's very selfish to go in and sue someone over something like that when it is so desperately needed. But I think you're right, Kate. I think that this just needs to be discussed. People need to be educated
Yeah,
because, especially this past session, we were fed this lie that unless we expand Medicaid,
yeah,
healthcare has no future in Mississippi. It's doomed. And I think what people need to understand are there are definitely other things like certificate of need laws that can absolutely affect healthcare in a positive way, the repealing of those laws.
Yeah,
And like you said, we've seen it happen in Republican states. Super red majority
yeah.
Republican states are doing this, and it is improving healthcare in those states.
Exactly, and that's the best part is with Americans for Prosperity, we have a national push that we're working on called the personal option. We're making healthcare personal again, because that's what's been it's been insurance companies and providers kind of being the way up top, and then people in the middle just kind of being it's kind of like the game of pong. It's, who's going to catch it or who's going to miss an issue, and somebody's going to get very bad results. And so for us, there's with the personal option, you have so many options. You
Mhm.
have certificate of need on the local level. You have last year we were thankful that the state of Mississippi passed, the legislature passed HSAs for public employees, which is health savings accounts for public employees, which allows
Yeah.
public employees in the state of Mississippi to have tax deductible accounts that are portable, and they're allowed to be investable, or they're investable, and it's all tax free, and all that money goes to your healthcare costs. Me and my wife have something called a flexible savings account,
Mhm.
and that allows us. I don't think we've spent hardly any money on healthcare this year, because all that money is being taken out prior to us using our before our checks even hit. All that money's going into our account, and so for us on the federal level, we want to use HSAs and FSAs for direct primary care. I
Mhm.
don't know if you're familiar with direct primary care, but it's a key piece to our
Mhm.
personal option where direct primary care is you spend $50 or
Right.
$60 for a doctor. The old school system.
Well, we had this conversation,
Yeah.
you and I did, and I said, "So what do we do? How do we fix the problem without expanding Medicaid?" And you said to me, and this was several years ago, I think, we had been to a lunch at the Mississippi Center for Public Policy, and you said, "I don't know that I have all the answers,
Mhm.
but I think one way to really drive the cost down for Mississippians is to have that primary option, and then maybe like a catastrophic
Mhm.
insurance policy, and that way you're paying a low amount, like maybe $50 a month, but you've got this primary care that you can see no matter what, and
Yeah.
then you also have something to cover you in case of a disaster or a catastrophic event." And so that has stuck with me because I thought that's really smart.
Yeah.
That keeps people from paying or having health insurance when they can't afford hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month on a plan.
Yeah, and that's the thing is there's so many options, and I mean it's so hard to even pick. But with that, I mean you do have direct primary care. You can have an HSA that you can stack money away every year, and that money does not go away. For that flexible savings account or the FSA, it goes away every year. So we have to use that money before the end of the year. But with HSAs, that rolls over from year to year. So you can save up a large sum of money for your medical costs. So if you're relatively healthy and also some people's jobs just limit their possibilities on healthcare options.
Yeah.
You either go into an exchange or you find direct primary care and get a catastrophic and do maybe some cost sharing. I know there's a lot of Christian services on cost sharing that allow you to kind of mitigate some of the risk of these big expenses coming in from healthcare. And but also that's the thing is what makes it personal is this might not work for some people. Some people might want, I mean, I love my plan that we have at work and it's great and I don't mind it. But for some people, they want that option of direct primary care and um, a lot more options when it comes to the flexibility of their job. And the funny thing is, the reason I kind of brought up HSAs and FSAs is it's against federal law to actually use your HSA and FSA for direct primary care doctors, which is ridiculous. They
Uh-huh.
consider it insurance, and we're like, but this is health care. This is my choice
Right.
of health care. And so a couple months ago, I try to be gentle about the way I say this, but I heard somebody say that the healthcare industry is just so broken because of the last few years of, bad things have happened and markets don't work. I'm like, no, the federal government has beat healthcare to death
Yeah.
and beat the options of healthcare for everyday Americans into the ground. And it's not a great option. And that's why we've experienced so many bad options. Plus, I will say the personal option is way more than just that. I mean, there's site neutral payments. There's conversations about doctor owned hospitals, which was banned under, I believe, the ACA. I mean, or Obamacare. I mean, there's so many bad things that have happened on the federal level that we have to get done, and that goes back to Medicaid. I I'm very sympathetic to the idea, and I know that I get told every time that I hate people and I don't want to expand Medicaid because I just want poor people to suffer, and that's not the case. I love people.
Mhm.
God placed us into a field that I get to present ideas that help people, that give people the most options, that give doctors the flexibility and the freedom to do what God intended them to.
Right.
But at the end of the day, um, I don't believe that these government programs are best. The lower you don't have a good quality of care, the cost of the actual cost of it is ridiculous. The care you receive is subpar. I know doctors hate it and hospital systems hate it, despite them wanting it. Um, and then on top of that, it's fraught with waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, there's much better options to help people. I'm not against safety nets. I know there are times that people need safety nets
Yeah.
to that bad things happen to people. And the original purpose of Medicaid, I understand to a certain extent. It is, for those who are mentally unable to hold a job, or for families that have very extreme circumstances with children, and
Mhm.
for
It's been
individual.
abused.
Yeah, it's been abused and it's been expanded, because I mean the thing is once it's expanded there is no going back,
Right.
and
I
then the
love what the
cost is going
legislature
up.
yeah, the legislature does these 4-year repealers on
Yeah.
everything, and it's never repealed.
No.
After 4 years, people have forgotten the issues, and they just kind of go on, and it stays.
Yeah.
These taxes stay.
Yeah.
There's never a repeal in 4 years like they make you think there's going to be.
Yeah.
But what's holding us back? What in Mississippi, or who in Mississippi is stopping us from repealing these laws? Who wants to keep them, and why?
Yeah, so I always joke with people. People ask what it's like to be a lobbyist at the Capitol, and I try to stay away from that word, but I am lobbying individuals for the betterment of Mississippi and for everyone out there. And I tell people, I mean, it's 1 against 12 usually. I'm the one guy saying con laws don't work. Now there's been last year was a really great example of when we actually had a lot of people come alongside us because they knew the bill was moving quickly.
Mhm.
And so that number changed quite drastically. But generally, I'm the only one in out there going, "Hey, listen, let's repeal these laws." But all the folks who represent hospitals, and I know they're just doing a job. I don't hold it against them, but they represent interest and hospitals that don't want to compete in the marketplace. And while I am thankful for the doctors and the nurses and all the amazing people that work in those hospitals, the idea that you should be allowed to use government force to keep your competitors out is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And for us, the conversation is Madison County is a great example. And I know some people I don't know how people feel about Madison County. I've grown to love a lot of great people in Madison County, and your options for hospitals are Canton or driving to Jackson.
Uh-huh.
And for all the work that's been put in here, all the amazing folks that work and live here, there should be a hospital here. There should be options here. And I think that's an opportunity. And if it's not that, then ambulatory surgical centers that allow for outpatient surgeries. There's an opportunity for more revenue to come in because there's medical tourism now. Oklahoma and Florida have some great numbers on medical tourism, that if con laws were out of the way, we could see people come to Mississippi to receive services that cost way more in their state.
Mhm.
Um, and so for us, the conversation needs to be um, the communities that are suffering the most, the rural communities, the communities that are kind of in between dead zones between two major hospitals.
Mhm.
How do we get new medical facilities in there? And con is the best way to do it. Um, and I will say, I think that the conversation will be, and this is what I hope, that anyone that listens to this that actually supports certificate of need laws, come to the table. I'm willing to have a conversation. I want to
Mhm.
have a conversation, but at the end of the day, South Carolina happened. South Carolina repealed these bills. Um, Arkansas is going to be going from, I think, 7 to hopefully 0 next year.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of states that have slowly over time repealed, and those folks have to come to the table and say, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to be able to hold off the impending doom, you know, of the hospitals having to compete. I might as well go to the table and set up a at least a game plan so I can prepare myself."
Yeah.
And so that's what I think the next steps will be. And again, I don't have anything against hospitals. I don't have anything against, you know, even the administrators, despite me probably having some very different views on the way healthcare should be administered in the state of Mississippi. I think there's a conversation that needs to be had. And I will say, you know, part of my job is also finding information, and that's what I
Mhm.
love presenting to legislators. Is we did a study with Dr. James Bailey at a, I believe it's Providence University. I always get it mixed up. I can't remember which one it is. Fantastic guy, and we actually found that like in Mississippi, we could save money on Medicare, save money on Medicaid, and individuals per individual could save up to $400 a year. So if you have a family of 4, I mean, that's a good amount of money for you to use in
Yeah.
healthcare, and that's all dependent on us repealing con laws
Yeah.
and stacking other options. I always am honest with people. Repealing con laws is not going to fix every problem. But at the end of the day, it is the first policy solution we can lean on to really start to see massive change. And then we can start stacking on portable benefits and HSAs for all and work on the
Right.
federal level. Because that's the one thing that people also forget about AFP sometimes is we don't just work on state. We have a massive federal team that works on the
Mhm.
federal side to pass the best healthcare laws possible,
Right.
and getting rid of some of these Obamacare ridiculous top down approaches to healthcare that just don't work. Um,
Socialized medicine.
it is, and if you want to have socialized medicine, I would invite you to go and visit folks in other
Absolutely.
countries
Absolutely.
that have to wait, and especially in countries that are supposed to be first world countries, governments deciding who lives and dies
Mhm.
is absolutely the most heartbreaking, most infuriating thing I've ever heard of. And that's why we're fighting for the American dream here. That's why we're fighting for the right of all Americans to achieve the best healthcare possible. And
Yeah.
that starts right here at home. And I'm very thankful for the legislators who do stand beside us and walk with us in this journey, and the activists like yourself and all the amazing folks that we've met across Mississippi, educating folks that are walking with us in this journey to help get rid of these laws.
Yeah.
And so I think we're on the cusp of greatness for Mississippi, but we
Yeah.
just have to remember that Mississippi's not a pie with limited, you know, slices for everyone.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunity. That's what somebody described it as a couple years ago. There's only so much pie to go around for
Uh-huh.
Mississippi, for Mississippians. And I'm like, no, there's so much opportunity. We have so many natural resources, so many amazing, talented people that have been told for their entire lives that they don't have any opportunities.
Mhm.
And when in reality, there's a lot of amazing, talented people here in Mississippi that can make Mississippi the best place to live, work, and raise a family.
Yeah, and to speak to your point a second ago that you made about in Madison County, where do you go? You know, you're stuck in between Canton and Jackson, and then you have to go into these areas, and I can tell you as a single mom whose child falls off the bed in the middle of the night and breaks a leg, and you have to decide, okay, which area of crime am I going to drive
Yeah.
into? Because there's nowhere else at that point that you can take them.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. I completely understand the point you're making that there definitely does need to be more options, especially in places where the communities and the businesses are thriving.
Yeah.
It just seems silly to not have those options available. So,
Yeah.
Kate, I know also you guys, which I love, you work on the school choice
Mhm.
piece. And we've been talking this week because there was an article that I happened upon in the Yazoo Herald,
Mhm.
in which I'm from Yazoo, that's my hometown. And I was kind of taken aback by it. It was an op-ed written by one of my not so favorite people, Nancy Loom, and, I'll say her name, I'm not afraid to say her name. But she was describing all the reasons why Mississippi should not have or not pass school choice laws. And, it was chock full of lies and untruths, and I was appalled. So I sent it to you guys, and I was like, "Look at this! Can you believe she said these things?" Which obviously I can believe that because that's what she does. But tell us, do y'all have a plan coming up this next legislative session for repealing certificate of need or for pushing school choice? If y'all started working on the legislative agenda,
Yeah. So there's certificate of need. Yes, I've met with leadership and met with some really great folks and started putting together some opportunities for the legislature to move forward. And I think we're going to see a bill of some sort, if not multiple bills, come forward, and I hope that we will see some very significant change when it comes to these laws. I can't speak to anything concrete right now, but I do have full faith in the legislature that they will see that the evidence is overwhelming, that there is no way to deny that certificate of need laws have to change. And there have been, leaders,
did
Jason
our new,
White.
I was about to say, did our new
Yeah.
speaker coming
Yeah.
in, has that
Speaker.
helped on this issue?
Yeah. Speaker White put together a subcommittee, of, really great legislators to have a conversation about con. And I know that he's brought it up at meetings before, as far as public meetings, and talked about it. And I think it's an area that I think he's interested to see what it will work on. But I think the best thing I've seen, or some of the best pieces that I love about the speaker's role, is he empowers his chairman to work on these issues. And so Chairman Sam Creekmore and Chairman or Vice Chairman on the subcommittee, Hank Zuber. And there's a lot of other legislators who are working on this issue, to have a conversation and see what we can find and see what the conversation leads to. So I think we'll see a bill. When it comes to education, I- I'm not sure exactly what we'll see next year because it's a hard conversation.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of folks in Mississippi uh, have been told lies about school choice, and haven't been given the most up to date information and the best information on it. And that's the hard part of with our job sometimes is we work on issues that are not the really
Most
easy,
popular.
yeah, easy, popular, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm a gun guy. I sold guns for years, and I love talking to people about the Second Amendment. But at the end of the day, it's not the easiest job, but it's a pretty great role to be like defend the Constitution. That's the
Yeah,
bar. When it comes to education, it's about storytelling. It's about letting people know what has happened in so many communities, whether it's low income individuals who want to get their child to a better school that, works, a mom that works really hard to put their kids into the best school district possible, or whether it's a family that their child is being bullied, and they want to move their kid to a safer school. Or if and I know that this is something that has not been worked out, but with educational scholarship accounts, ESAs,
mhm,
if you want to send your child to an institution that reflects your ideals better than your current school, and I'm not, I want to be clear, like I have a lot of teacher friends that are teachers, and
mhm.
a lot of folks that are in the school system, and I know their beliefs. I know they're God-fearing Christian people who do not believe the lies of the left.
Right,
But at the end of the day, we can't prove that there's a perfect place for every child. We want every child to be given the ability to find the best education for themselves and for the way that parents see them. Their parents know them best.
right.
And so I think that's a great option this year. Also, I know that we've worked on No More Lines campaign, which is very much a conversation about ensuring that every child has access to a great public school. Um, and how this generally works is it's open enrollment, and the for what I've seen is you have the sending school cannot refuse to let the child go, but
The accepting
the
school, yeah,
accepting school
has to
can
agree.
has to agree.
There has to
And
be room,
yeah, there has to be
obviously.
room, there has to be the logistics part of it, and I think that that's a very reasonable thing. And there were some really great bills last year
There were.
on open enrollment, and I think that's going to be a really great opportunity. But there's a lot of really great folks who are working on education, yourself, Ed Choice, America's Prosperity, Yes Every Kid.
I was
Uh,
gonna mention Yes Every Kid.
yeah,
That's a
there's
partner
so many.
organization that of AFP that you guys work closely with, and they've been great
Yeah,
in supporting school choice measures, and I I love it when people talk about the ESAs, the education savings accounts, and how those follow the child, so they're not that's not money that's going into superintendents' pockets or funding systems. We're actually funding the students and how they learn the best, and I hate to see that program use the terminology voucher because
yeah,
then it seems as though you're just handing out this free money that we're having to pull from somewhere when that's not the case
yeah.
at all. So I think even just using the correct terminology to explain what school choice actually means can go a really long way.
Absolutely, yeah, no, using the actual terms that will be used in the language, you know, ESAs are they're very regulated in what they can be used on. There's
Right.
different states vary on whether you can use it for transportation or whether you can or whether, you know, what is in there. People are not I think the conversation that I've heard is people are buying, big screen TVs and all different types of craziness with this, and that's not the case. These are regulated accounts that will allow for a parent to choose, yes, the best educational tools possible, the best opportunities possible for their children. And the best part is what we've seen across America is a revolution in education, where individuals are setting up micro schools and
Mhm.
I believe it's Khan Academy that I've seen a lot of, and online schools and or virtual schools, and
Uh-huh.
you know, some people they just want to go to a different public school. That's the best part about educational freedom is
Or
we
these
are
pods. I know a lot they've done
yeah.
these pods where they will take small numbers of students and
Mhm.
hire a really great teacher to come in and teach because they're when they have these ESAs and when they have this flexibility and this freedom to choose,
Mhm.
that becomes accessible to parents and children.
Absolutely, and I also wanna speak directly to homeschool parents. I've got some really amazing friends that are homeschool parents, and this is they homeschool because of very specific reasons, very specific ideals. And I can promise you now that any work that Americans for Prosperity does is going to be a very well thought out,
Mhm.
very well designed bill to where it's not going and private schools, you know, we want people to know that we're not here to tell you how to teach. We're not going to tell you where to be, how to do it. We want transparency and we want make sure that the money is being used properly for the
Mhm.
students.
Right.
But at the end of the day, our conversation is, you know what's best for your
It's the
child.
parents' fundamental right to
Yeah,
direct the upbringing of their children as they see fit.
exactly.
That's it at the end of the day.
Yep.
That's the biggest issue here, and I know I have a lot of homeschool friends who are concerned
Yeah.
about school choice because they
Rightfully
don't want
so.
the
I get it.
government coming in and regulating what they're doing and how they're teaching their children in their homes, and that's one thing that we are that's a pretty we're better in Mississippi than a lot of other states because
Mhm,
we don't have our we're not micromanaging parents and how they
mhm.
homeschool their children. We give parents pretty much the flexibility to educate their child when they choose to homeschool as they want to do. And so I think homeschool parents are a little concerned about that.
Mhm.
But what I do know is that I know AFP wouldn't support anything, and I would not support anything that would give government the ability to come in and force any sort of state testing or federal testing or to be able to acquire the ESAs.
Mhm.
I know that that just wouldn't be, or there would at least be a an opt out.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing that I think that needs to be clear is these are not required accounts. These are not required for you to use. And I don't know any state that ever requires them. Because there's a lot of folks who just they understand that strings are generally attached to government money.
Yes.
But the best part is when we have honest conversations and you have folks who have done this for a very long time. I mean, the Ed Choice, you know, Milton Friedman,
Uh huh.
that's their origin. And so the conversations that have been had, this is not something that's new. This is not a 5-year-old fight. This is years and years in the making. And people know that education freedom works, and opportunities for each child are needed. And for Mississippi, I remember growing up, and I love my teachers that I had as a kid. And but at the end of the day, I mean, I have to be very honest and say, like, I talked to legislators and I said, listen, I didn't get to my job, pushing policy and advocating for these big ideas that I never thought I'd understand because of my public school education, or even my private college education. I love William Carey, but it wasn't what I studied. It was literally because I found a passion, and I found what was how my mind worked, and I was able to use that to get to an amazing place that I've been able to meet and do incredible things I never thought I'd be able to do. And I want every child to get that earlier. I want
Mhm.
every child to be able to say, you know, I know how my mind works. I started woodworking during the pandemic and leatherworking, and I was like, if somebody would have told me that my geometry was this, I think I would have actually loved geometry.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I had a tutor in college look at me and say, "Dude, you recognize patterns like crazy. Like, you could be really good at, like, I think it was calculus or something." I looked at him like he was crazy because I could barely pass college algebra. But at the end of the day, I knew that I know that every child is uniquely made in, the image of God, and has amazing opportunities to do incredible things. And I'm not saying that, you know, it's I am saying that the current offerings are not giving children the best options possible. And it's not the fault of the teacher. It's not the fault of a lot of folks.
It's a system.
It's the system that's broken. And we can get into how these systems were designed, the changing of the bells, the way that the system works, and how, is it the best for students? And honestly, at the end of the day, the best part is I don't have to do top down approach where I have to tell kids how they should learn.
Mhm.
I can trust parents to know that they know their child better, the best,
Right,
to where they can design the best education plan possible. That's not my role. That shouldn't be the government's role. The
right.
government's role should be, if there is going to be tax money being pulled for this, if there is going to be some sort of mandate on education, uh, the conversation should be that we should give parents the rights
Yeah,
to decide what's best for their children.
absolutely.
So,
Amen to that.
well,
You know,
I'm
that's my
glad.
passion, you know that.
Oh yeah.
But I know AFP's done a lot of work in the past on criminal justice reform. Are you still looking into that? Are there still things that you guys are wanting to get done there?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, I am excited that, I was able to do some really great work on the criminal justice side. The work that was done on the federal side under President Trump, where he did incredible work with criminal justice, and actually making sure that crimes were proportionate to, or the time was proportionate to the crime. And I know that Mississippi is in a place where we were very careful about the way that things were done, and there were some issues that, AFP was not going to be a part of. And I think that, there's still a conversation to be had around the dignity of all people, and if we send someone to jail, we have to know that, I can't remember the number right now, but a very high percentage of individuals that go into jail come out at some point in their life, and if
Mhm.
they come out worse than they went in, then the system has failed.
Right.
And so it's probably not going to be a top priority this year, just because, you know, healthcare, education, and economic progress are such big issues,
Right. Yeah.
um, that I doubt it will be a top priority. But at the end of the day, it is something that, continuously, we are I'm willing to look at, and if a bill comes up, we'd love to look at it. But like I said, the conversation I think right now is the reforms that were done that, like I said, mirrored a lot of the Trump policies, are, making sure that those work, making sure that the system is working the way it should, making sure that if an individual goes in with an addiction or a lack of skills, I mean, there's such a large, vast majority of individuals in prisons are illiterate and
Mhm.
have very limited skills. And when they come out, they don't have an opportunity. So they go back to crime. And
Right.
so I think,
We aren't
uh,
rehabilitating.
exactly. And I think that's, I'm losing the name of, the program, but there's a program that used to be Mississippi Prison Industries. I think it's MagCorp now. They're working on individual skills, making sure that individuals once they come out of prison, they have the skills to weld, to go out and find a job, and to leave a life of crime behind, and do what is the ultimate goal of those individuals. Be fathers and mothers, be brothers and sisters, go back to their communities and tell people jail is not where communities get better. This is not a race issue. This is not an issue that this is an issue across Mississippi. We have to face addiction head on
Right.
by repealing laws like certificate of need that
Right.
limit the amount of beds. We have to get our education system better. We have to make sure our schools and our educational options reflect the needs of our communities and the rights of parents. We have to make sure that skills and licensing and all these business regulations are lowered barriers to make sure that individuals, if they want to start a company, they can, and they can join, they can be plumbers, and they can be, or if they want to go back to school and be way more than, or be any level of training or whatever, they can do that. Um, and so I think the opportunity is there. Now, we'll say the number one priority of America's for prosperity is public safety. At the end of the day, I do not support letting violent criminals run on the streets,
Mhm.
we've never supported that.
Right.
We've never supported anything that I believe is going to harm individuals. The reason I support such big things on certificate of need laws is because our police officers don't they don't need to be dealing with mental health patients and individuals that have severe drug addictions. Those individuals need to be in specialized care places of care, and for those individuals to find the care they need. Now,
Right.
some people, they're, coming from a family of addiction and having so many problems in the communities I grew up in. This is none of this is silver bullet. None of this is going to fix it all together. But I want to be very clear that the conversations that we've had around criminal justice has been very much the conversation of making sure individuals that went in for, nonviolent offenses, for offenses that are you're able to be rehabilitated,
Right.
have opportunities for you to achieve that goal and to come out and be a productive member of society. But if you commit crimes and you harm and uh, inflict your will on an individual's personal rights and take someone's life, hurt someone beyond repair, where that person's going to deal with that for the rest of their life, we're going to make sure that we never support, and that you are in jail for a very long time. And that's where the prison system that's the reason it exists.
Yeah.
I'm not an anarchist. I believe that government has a place. God instituted government as a tool for law and order, and for individuals to to you know if they commit these crimes, they deserve a punishment. Um, but if we are going to punish people, if we are going, and also we need to look at what crimes are being punished, and
Right.
how this is going on, because we have seen some things like on the federal side, the weaponization of the federal government. That's
Absolutely.
where that's where criminal justice is an issue for all Americans,
Uh-huh.
because as soon as the federal government says you can't say something, we see what's going on in the UK right now. We see what's going on across Europe, where governments are using laws and the force of the government to tell you what you can and can't say, and for individuals being arrested, moms being arrested for saying something about the school boards.
Being a domestic terrorist,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
labeled a domestic terrorist by the Department of Justice,
yeah,
just because you are concerned about what's being taught in a public school is outrageous.
exactly. And that's why the conversation, it cannot be for every crime you get this or that or whatever. It has to be very much a conversation about, what was this crime? How was it committed? If it was a mom or a family member or an individual speaking out in front of an abortion clinic or whatever you want to say, um, if it's in your free speech, if it's First Amendment protected activity, then that's not a conversation that I'm ever going to be on the other side going, yeah, we need to shut this down. But if it is an individual that has harmed people, stolen items, done, something, we want to make sure that individuals that are struggling get the help they need, and individuals that have committed heinous crimes are locked up and protected, and our society is protected from individuals that have done irredeemable harm to individuals.
So, Cade, thank you so much for explaining all of this and talking about, what you're working on and letting everyone know kind of what's happening around the certificate of need law piece. But tell us how can the person out there listening, just the everyday Mississippian, get involved? Are there any classes coming up? Are there any events coming up that you would like to tell people about and invite people to?
Well, I'll be honest. I'm not sure what is
That might Stone
officially
might know
on.
more.
Yeah, yeah, Stone will definitely know more. I know that we've had some classes going on in Brandon that have already started. And I'm pretty sure if you go to our website or go to our Facebook page, America's for Prosperity Mississippi, or our Twitter, AFPMS underscore MS, we should highlight a lot of our events.
Mhm.
And then also, we're going to be doing other events coming up around federal priorities and conversations about what's going to be coming up in the next year, depending on how the elections go. We're coming up on a fiscal cliff. So, there's going to be some, and that's a much deeper issue. That's such a big issue to talk about. So I will not even get into that. But the conversations are going to be going on over the next few months and the next year or so. You'll have to keep up with us online. We're going to be doing a lot of events. We've got folks who work in North, South, and Central Mississippi.
Y'all have
Uh,
really grown.
yeah, no, from where I started, I remember being, first starting out hosting phone banks and text banks, and I will say, our organization has a very unique stance on grassroots. That is the number one priority. We believe that grassroots stories, grassroots activities, and grassroots knowledge are the key to change.
Mhm.
And so when you actually look at what's coming up, we're gonna knock doors, we're gonna make phone calls, we're gonna educate our neighbors, and there's a lot of opportunities to get involved outside of Mississippi, with our sister organizations and some of the activities going on the federal level, to make sure that federally we're not left behind. And so there's a lot of opportunities coming up, but the best way to keep up with us is on Facebook or on X, and keep us in there. And then also, if you're in North, South, or Central Mississippi, there's somebody that I can connect you with, or our team can connect you with. And so all you have to do is reach out to one of our team members, and we can get you connected to a grassroots engagement director that can get you into a class, that can get you all the resources you need. We've got some leadership opportunities that I know that you are part of. That is an amazing thing, because we know there's incredible leaders in communities across Mississippi that are passionate, that understand that the conversations have to be had,
Mhm.
and we can do it in a civil way. Um, and I think we've got a lot of great opportunities coming up over the next year to be involved.
Yeah, and Kate, you've been resilient, I'll tell you, because shortly after I met you, I have to tell this story real quick, but shortly after we met, everyone left.
Yeah.
Everyone left, and they were looking for a new state director, and you were kind of thrown out there and handed the program, Mississippi program, to you and said, "Here you go. You're gonna be running this for a little while until we get a new director in," and it was a transitioning time,
Yeah.
and, you did a great job with that and kept everything rolling, and I just appreciate all the work that you do and everything that AFP does in general. So thank you so much for being here and talking to me and letting the audience know kind of what CON is all about and why this needs to be an issue that's concerning for Mississippians and how we can make it better. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the time to share. And I want to say real quick, I'm thankful for the team we have and for Starla Brown, her leadership.
Yes.
A Mississippian who came back from 30 years of working in Florida.
And look, my Florida friends want her back, and I keep telling them, you can't have her back. You can't have her back.
She's here for a while, and so we're very appreciative of her. Stone, Nathan, and Steven, our grassroots engagement, or actually, I'm wrong. Stone is now he's got a new position where he's in a leadership position, director of grassroots operations. So we're going to be looking at some really great opportunities for him to lead as he's done since I've known him. So I'm thankful for our team, and thank you for putting this together and being such a great mom in the Liberty community and leading the conversation when it comes to moms and their children and the needs of their children.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so I'm going to read this ad read from our sponsor, the Yerkeron Law Firm. So I thought it was a good idea to bring your client dope in a cell phone while he was in jail. Now you're the one in jail and in need of an attorney. So Yerkeron Law Firm is there to help. Or if you're a city councilwoman who just had to resign because you decided to take a bribe and go buy some Christian Louis Vuitton, which that's how you say it, Sean, some Christian Louis Vuitton shoes, and now you need an attorney to get you out of trouble, call the Yerkeron Law Firm. Sean Yerkeron has practiced law in Mississippi for 19 years with over a decade of that as a prosecutor in Hinds County and at the Mississippi Attorney General's office, and he has the experience to handle any situation that you may have gotten yourself into. He won't bring you dope or a cell phone, but he can offer you a helping hand. Call or text him anytime at 601-906-9094, or you can find him at onetextlaw.com or on his Facebook page. And always remember that just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. Unless you plead guilty, like some of our Jackson friends are doing. But I'm sure there will be more to come on that. Interesting stuff going on in our capital city. But as always, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you all back here next week.